some hope that the federal government realizes. And I mean, I've told Prime Minister Carney that the separatist movement in Alberta was created by his predecessor. And I think he's the one who can take the wind out of it by actually living up to these commitments. I mean, I take that movement very seriously.
The removal of an illegitimate, corrupt, repressive government or leader, Mr. Maduro, is welcome news.
Gang, what's up? Smash the like, hit subscribe. Aaron, Canadian Looney. We'll get back to Danielle Smith in a moment. She's putting Mark Carney in his place right there. It's shocking. But in a very revealing interview that just happened this morning, we've got Mark Carney congratulating Donald Trump on his moves against Venezuela. Let's take a peek at this. It gets hot and interesting the whole time. Let's check this out.
President Trump has said one of the key reasons that he went into Venezuela was to get the oil out. Do you think this will impact the Canadian oil sector, and does that increase the need, in your estimation, to have a pipeline to the northwest coast of BC?
I'll say a couple of things. One is that, from our perspective, the removal of an illegitimate, corrupt, repressive government or leader, Mr. Maduro, is welcome news. It creates the possibility for democratic transition in Venezuela. We very much support that. We're available to support that, and we urge that to happen in a peaceful transition. And that's the best prospect for greater prosperity for the Venezuelan people and to respect the will of the Venezuelan people. Now, a functioning, not corrupt Venezuelan economy will produce more oil. It'll be better for the Venezuelan people. It'll be more stable for the Western Hemisphere. That's all a good thing. Canadian oil, Canadian energy, but I'll speak because you asked specifically about Canadian oil. It's been our view, and we're working towards this, that Canadian oil will be competitive because it is low risk, clearly low risk, low cost, the marginal costs. There's been huge progress in getting down the costs. And low carbon, which is what the Pathways project, carbon capture, will bring. And that makes Canadian oil competitive for the medium and long term. So we welcome the prospect of peace, a peaceful transition, democratic Venezuela. We welcome the prospect of greater prosperity in Venezuela, but we also see the competitiveness of Canadian oil. And we're investing, or we're putting in place measures so that that's going to happen. And in that context, a pipeline and exports to Asia. We've got competitive product, and we'd be diversifying our markets. And that's one of the reasons why we signed the comprehensive MOU with Alberta. So we'll be working towards that.
Ms. Freeland resigned yesterday as your special representative.
Is that a follow-up?
The
that seems
reconstruction.
like a totally different
I wish we had more time. I wanted to ask more Venezuela stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Did you ask her not to quit because of the minority parliament situation right now?
No, absolutely not. First off, let me.
I should say, as a member of parliament.
Let me. No. Just to be clear. Ms. Freeland, Krista has served our country for well over a decade in a formal role as a parliamentarian, certainly in a number of ministerial posts, and served with great distinction. She was, I had her as my special envoy after she left cabinet for the Ukraine reconstruction. Judgment became her judgment that she could be more useful for that process as she was leaving, as she was retiring as a parliamentarian, as a direct advisor. My judgment was that taking that role would be consistent with resigning as an MP, and I welcomed her doing that, and I'm pleased that for Ukraine, and again, if I can reemphasize and bring it back to today, there is real momentum. Nothing's assured, but there's real momentum in this peace process, and the security guarantees are incredibly important, but as is the reconstruction and the prosperity plan, and she'll be there to work on that. And look, we'll have a by-election. There'll be a few by-elections coming up, and we'll run great candidates, and the people in those ridings will decide who they want to send to Parliament. Mr. Brewster.
Prime Minister, Murray Brewster with CBC News. Thanks for taking our questions. I just want to pick up on what Christian was talking with you about a moment ago on Greenland. The Danish Prime Minister has said that any type of military force used to annex Greenland would be the end of NATO. Do you concur with that assessment?
Well, let me reiterate what I said to Mr. Noel, which is that the future of Greenland is a decision for Greenland and for Denmark exclusively. It's their decision. Secondly, from a NATO context, the way I would frame it is that the western flank of NATO, which would include Greenland, the Arctic, is, given the evolving threat environment, is an area that we as NATO, Canada obviously importantly, given our geography, need to invest more in. This is a point that we've been making in recent years and since I became Prime Minister that we've really stressed. And with our buildup that's just beginning of our military capabilities, we are making heavy investments in the Arctic. We'll be working with our Nordic partners. We'll be working through NATO. This is one of the issues I'll be discussing with the Secretary General as part of an ongoing discussion with him around this to further advance it.
Stephen Miller, who is a senior advisor to President Trump, has refused to rule out military force in the annexation of Greenland. Does that trouble you?
Well, I didn't see the specific comments that Mr. Miller may have made. Look, I'll take a step back. We're partners in NATO. It is a mutual defense alliance. We can provide that security. And when we look at a couple basic, there's basic principles here, which is self-determination of nations, sovereignty, territorial integrity. And then there is approaches that we have as partners to what we're trying to accomplish. And as NATO, we can provide security for all of NATO, Greenland included. And as the threat environment is changing, we're making the investments in order to do that, and we can operationalize and augment and build additional plans to do that. So, and that's what we will do. And we stand with Denmark, we stand with Greenland. Our closest partnership is with the United States, and we'll work with everybody to make sure that we move forward together. Thank you very much.
That's enough of Prime Minister Carney. You can only take so much. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Let's check out Danielle Smith.
Well, I would say that we just have to have some hope that
faith?
some hope that the federal government realizes. And I've told Prime Minister Carney that the separatist movement in Alberta was created by his predecessor, and I think he's the one who can take the wind out of it by actually living up to these commitments. I take that movement very seriously. It's born of a lot of frustration about how Central Canada and Ottawa in particular has treated our province. So Mark Carney, he at least has a little bit of history here. He had a period of time where he grew up here, and I believe he's genuine in wanting to heal that divide.
Let's talk about that relationship then between Alberta and Ottawa compared to Alberta and Ottawa when Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister. You said it was the dark ages, the decade of darkness, right? How has it really evolved or changed, and can we work with Ottawa now?
I would say there's a few things that have changed. The fact that the former Environment Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, quit caucus or quit cabinet, I think that's a demonstration that there was genuine movement away from those damaging policies. The other thing I'd say is the world is very different than it was even 5 years ago. When you look at the Russian invasion of Ukraine, when you look at the instability in the Middle East, when you see the election of Donald Trump, when you see how all of our trading partners and friends and allies have faced issues of reliability for energy and reliability for power and spiking power prices, which has led to affordability crises all over the world. When people are hurting, politicians have to respond to that. And you cannot have constant inflation of everything from your home heating to your power to the transportation fuel you use to your groceries to your cost of living associated with your rent and your housing. You can't have that and ignore it. And you ignored it at your peril. So I think that's what the world realized, is that they were moving too far, too fast, and it was hurting regular people. So I think it is genuine. I think that that's been a real change in the last 5 years.
Many governments in the world right now are really embracing green energy, solar and wind and so forth. But Alberta seems to be like, hell bent, we're going for oil and gas. We're going to keep going, with a lot of the oil and gas sector here, with the energy sector. Can they actually live in harmony here in the province?
Yeah, I think it's a mischaracterization. I mean, what we saw when I came in is because of all these bad laws, the only power that was lining up to get built was solar and wind, 23,000 megawatts of it. But solar only works 10% of the time. Wind only works 30% of the time. So what are you supposed to put on your system when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing? That we almost had a complete failure of our power grid in the depths of winter when it was a minus 30 because they had to turn off the wind turbines because there can be mechanical failure, and of course there was no sun. And batteries only work for an hour. So you can't tell people, sorry, just sit and freeze in the dark until morning. That is just not the way, people die under those circumstances. So that was how dire it got. And that's why we took a very strong stance and passed a Sovereignty Act motion under our Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act to say, if we do not get movement on these power rules, we're going to have to create a crown corporation and we're going to have to build it ourselves. So that was the reason why we had to do that. Now, when I talk about bringing on a responsible amount of solar and wind, what that means is you have to have natural gas backup so that your plants can come up as solar and wind go down. And that is the approach that we're taking. We had to put a pause on everything in order to make sure that we could change the market so that we rewarded that kind of reliability. But you're still seeing solar, wind, and natural gas projects moving forward, and I expect that will continue.
Oh, yeah. We'll wrap it up right there, gang. If you like this video, you'll love this one. You might love this one. Check them out. Aaron Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video. Thank you for watching this one. Ciao for now.